Hey guys, Caleb here, back again with more Red Knot. This time I got a book from the library. It is The Twisted Citadel, Dark Glass Mountain, Book 2, by Sarah Douglas, author of The Serpent Bride. Apparently this is a sequel to something which I didn't see at the library. I just, grabbed the first one I saw. The cover looks kind of cool. It's showing like this glass tower thing, transparent tower in the background. There's like some water and some mountains, and in the foreground looks like there's an angel to the left and like two guys on horsebacks going all hell this glass castle thing, and then a dude off to the right, and then in like at the bottom that's meant to be in the very near foreground, there's like this group of dudes, like all ready to kick some ass because they're in armor and shit. And the back is just an extension of the front cover showing more guys in armor ready to kick some ass. Let's see, the back says, "Praise for Sarah Douglas and the Serpent Bride." Okay, so this is how great the first book was. A dark, sensuous first in a new fantasy series, Publishers Weekly. A much longed for and wholly triumphant return of best-selling Axis trilogy. Wait, this is... Well, I would expect it to be the Dark Glass Mountain trilogy or something. But apparently it's the Axis trilogy. Sarah Douglas has the breadth of a vision necessary to create sweeping epics and the storyteller's gift that makes readers love her. We'll see about that. Locus. Epic storytelling on a par with Terry Goodkind and Robert Jordan, not Gordon. Liberty Journal. I don't know who those guys are, but I'm sure I'll find out if I look them up when I go to the library next time. Storytelling at its best with fast-paced action, gritty realism, powerful characters, magic, and romance. Romantic times. That's kind of sad. That does not give me high hopes for a fantasy story when a romance-themed review thing talked about this book. I'm not a fan of hardcore romance stories. It's okay if it's to the side, but I just don't like my main plot to be, does he love me? Does he not love me? Is he mad at me? Oh my god, what's it gonna do to our relationship? Oh my god. That whore trying to get my man? What a slut. That kind of shit. I don't like it. So let's do the inside cover now. Sarah Douglas has won legions of fans worldwide for her epic tales of sorcery, forbidden love, oh fuck me if this is actually what it's about, and heart-pounding action. She revealed her biggest story yet with the Dark Glass Mountain saga, and now the adventure continues. The Twisted Citadel. I almost said cathedral, but it's not cathedral, it's Citadel. Get it right, you dumb fuck. Oh my god. Okay, fantasy story, which means fantasy names, which means Caleb fails. I fail anyway when I try to pronounce stuff, but yeah. Tinsendor is no more. The land is gone, but a few sun sores remain. That has the opposite impression when I say it than the book means. and a new foe walks the world. In a time of magic and danger, 3 new heroes have stepped forward. Ishbel Burnell, priestess of the serpent coil, Isaiah, the tyrant of Isambard, and Maximilian, the lord of Elko Falling. Wait, that's only 2 people, not 3. Oh, the tyrant of Isambard. Wait, I thought that was part of the serpent. We only named 2 people, maybe 3, but we're not really separating them well enough for me to understand if that's a 3rd person or just a more elaborate title to the first one. Yet, despite their best efforts, the dark god Kanubai has risen, and worse yet, war approaches. Backed by the evil, insidious dark glass mountain, hordes of insatiable Skrellings ravage the land. While the trio struggles to keep its armies and alliances alive, the Sun Soars have their own challenges, including the chance to rejoin the magical star dance at long last, and the appearance of Lilfast, long-lost kin of Ikari. The Lilfast and the Ikari may be friends, or deadly enemies. And as tensions rise between the 2 races, Axis Sunsoar revives his elite strike force in a desperate bid to stop the darkness. So let's read about the author now on the back cover flat thingy. Sarah Douglas has worked as a nurse and has a PhD in early modern European history. Her first fantasy adventure, the Axis trilogy, had an overwhelming response from readers. Starman won the 1996 Aurelius Award for Best Fantasy Novel. This was followed by the best-selling Way for Redemption trilogy, among other novels. Sarah lives in an 1880s-era house, Nonsuch, in Cornelian Bay, Tasmania. Wow, really? She's currently hard at work on the 3rd book of Dark Glass Mountain, following The Serpent Bride and The Twisted Citadel. Well, if this turns out to be okay, at least, I might try to find these other books. I don't know if they're at the library or not. Got a map. Yes, I know this is it. Oh, god damn it, this has a prologue. I'm sick of reading prologues. The blade of the knife slid under the skin of his thigh, passing between skin and flesh sweetly, and with exquisite gentleness. The heart of the blade cauterizing myriad tiny blood vessels. Every now and then the god priest who wielded the knife paused, twisting his hand so that the skin lifted away a little from underlying tissue. Josiah kept his eyes closed. The pain was bearable. I don't think getting my flesh ripped from my body would be bearable. But only if he did not allow himself to contemplate what the god priest might do once he had completed making the long rents in Josiah's thighs, or only if he did not allow himself to hear the gasps of anticipation among the crowd of hundreds within the packed chamber, or the smacking of their lips. Are they going to eat you? What the hell? Josiah lay as still as he might, his eyes tightly closed, ignoring the sounds around him, trying to keep his mind calm, and yet still he could not stop the tears sliding down his cheeks. It had not been his choice to die in this manner. The god priest paused, contemplating the trembling and the blood-streaked young man strapped naked to the top of the altar. The priest's mouth pursed in contemplation. Then, decision made, he handed the knife back to his assistant, nodded at the query in the man's eyes. Then he looked back to Josiah. The man was an extraordinary gift. Never before had anyone of such ability, of such family, been gifted to the god priests. His soul would make a remarkable deity, and would sell for such a sum. What? The god priest licked his lips, anticipating the gold that would be his by day's end. But first the young man had to die, and as badly as the god priest could devise. What? What is going on? This does not sound awesome. What the crap is going on? His assistant returned to the god priest's side and very carefully handed to his master the little pot of molten lead. Oh, fuck me, this is going to suck. The god priest bent down to Josiah, the glow of the molten metal reflecting the artifice in the priest's eyes. The assistant leaned forward, knife in hand, and lifted up the flap of skin. Lifted up the flap of skin on the nearest cut. Oh, fuck me. No, this is gonna suck. This is really going to suck. Josiah smelled the metal, felt its warmth, felt the skin lift away from the cuts, and screamed. Ah, fuck. He could not stop himself. He screamed and screamed, the breath wrenching in and out of his lungs, his body convulsing so badly he would have slid from the altar had not he been held tight with the straps. The god priest poured the molten metal into the cut, taking great care now that the offering twitched so horribly, and wrinkled his nose in disgust at the smell that rose from Josiah's burning flesh. Then he moved to the next cut, pausing only so his assistant could refill the little pot of molten lead. Ow! Josiah escaped to the Twisted Tower. He ran down the path toward the corkscrew fortress, automatically counting out the 86 steps, and thudded against the wooden door, his hand closing about the doorknob. He did not open it. He knew he could, for the Twisted Tower would not permit him entry, but if he entered while the Koran god priest was torturing him, then he might corrupt the tower and all of its contents. He huddled against the door, sobbing, wretched beyond imagination. If he entered, then he would be safe, but he would corrupt the tower. If he stayed outside, then eventually the god priest would have him, and his soul would be tortured into one of the Kolian's cursed bronze deities. Josiah knew what he had to do. He leaned his forehead against the door, trying to bring his weeping under control. Inside the tower, his father and brother looked at each other, then both turned their backs on the door, closing their ears and hearts to the sound of Josiah's horror. The god priest sighed. After 8 hours of the most exquisite of tortures, the offering was now in a wretched state. Both his life and his sanity hung by a very thin thread. It would not be long. As tired as he was, the god priest managed to smile and nod to the assembled mass of the Koran fist. Korolian. Okay, I'll try to say it right next time. Korolian. Fist. First. Not fist. He had saved the very best for last. Once more he nodded to his assistant, who brought forth a large gray rat caged in a wickerwork basket. The god priest lifted out the rat carefully. The very last thing he needed was a nip from the creature's sharp teeth, and held it down on Josiah's belly, while his assistant fetched a large copper bowl, which had leather straps hanging from its rim. With both careful maneuvering and timing, the god priest and his assistant trapped the rat under the upturned bowl, then strapped the bowl tightly to Josiah's belly. Oh, the crowd breathed in, almost as one, and every single man and woman of them leaned forward, their eyes wide with anticipation. The god priest looked about at the crowd, a slight smile on his tired face, reveling in the moment. He took one of the 2 ladles his assistant held, paused. Then both he and his assistant beat at the copper bowl with all their strength, dancing about the altar in a maddening frenzy. Josiah couldn't let go. He couldn't die. All he wanted was to escape into death, even though he knew the god priest would then trap his soul. But he couldn't let go. His body was a mess of wounds. He had been beaten, tortured, agonized, teased, tormented. Every moment he existed was now spent in an ocean of pain. Josiah could not let himself take that final step into death. He wanted to weep, but there was no more tears left. He wanted the god priest and his assistant to cease their infernal din on the bowl, for it fractured his concentration, and if he wanted to die, then he needed to concentrate or... Oh gods, oh gods, oh gods! The rat, driven into insanity by the noise and reverberation, desperate to escape, bit deeply into his belly. Josiah found he had indeed enough voice and breath remaining to scream. The god priest continued his beating on the bowl, but now it was slightly less frenzied. He had seen from Josiah's face the instant the rat had begun to chew into his belly, had seen the incredulous horror fill the man's eyes the moment before he had shrieked. Then Josiah convulsed. The god priest lowered the ladle, stepping away from the altar, and indicated to his assistant to do likewise. He was amazed that Josiah still had the strength to move so violently. He would make the most powerful deity the Coeur d'Orleans had ever seen. The god priest watched intently, knowing that Josiah's death was only heartbeats away, needing not to miss the moment. A movement under Josiah's ribcage. Oh, fuck! Oh, god damn, that sucks ass! Oh, fuck, that's horrible! That is so horrible! Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Oh my god, that sucks so bad! That sucks so bad! Oh, fuck! Oh, ugh! Oh, I need a moment, guys. That's just... Oh, fuck! Oh, man, that's terrible. That's horrifying. That is so upsetting. That is so upsetting. A movement under Josiah's ribcage caught the priest's eye, and he held his breath. The rat was almost at Josiah's heart. Soon, soon, soon. Quick! The god priest hissed, and the assistant handed him a bronze statue, beautifully carved in exquisite detail, into the perfect likeness of a man now laying dying on the altar. Soon, Josiah's eyes remained wide open. He drew in a deep breath, ready for another shriek, when suddenly everything stopped. Everything about him stilled. The god priest's own eyes widened. He held his breath, then suddenly relaxed. Got you, he said, smiling in relief, and cradled the bronze statue against his body. Josiah existed. It was cold and heartless where he was now, but at least there was no pain. There was nothing save his existence, and a sense of what lay in the world about him. A man reaching for the receptacle which held Josiah trapped. A title to go with the man, the Duke of Citadel. Cold. Everything about Josiah was cold. He wept. Within the chamber, deep in the heart of the palace Within the chamber, deep in the heart of the palace of the first in Coriolis, all eyes were on the wondrous bronze deity that the god priest now handed to the Duke of Citadel. No one looked at the corpse laying on the altar, and thus no one saw the rat, wet with blood and shaking with effort, crawl from the corpse's mouth. Drop from the altar and scramble away into a dark corner. No one saw it again, not for a very, very long time. That's a sucky way to die. That's horrible. That is all kinds of awful. All kinds of awful. These people, oh my god, that's terrible. I hope later in the book these guys get their asses handed to them. That is so awful. That is terrible. Chapter 1. The Sky Peaks Pass and Dark Glass Mountain. Isambard. Isabel Burnell Priscillius sank to her knees in the snow, watching Maximilian Presimus, the lord of Elko falling, walking away from her into the night. "I'm so sorry," he said to her, over his shoulder. "So sorry." He vanished into the darkness, Ravenna at his side. Very slowly Isabel leaned over, her hands clutching into the snow, until her forehead touched the ground's icy surface. She stayed like that for 4 or 5 heartbeats. Then her right fist beat once against the snow. Then again, and she swore very softly, but very fiercely. Yes, because when I swear, even under my breath, it's very soft but also fierce. Isabel was not angry at Maximilian, nor even at Ravenna, but at herself. She could not believe that she, Archpriestess of the Coil, wife of the Lord of Elko falling, lover of the tyrant of Isambard, and a Persimus, or however you say that, in her own right, had allowed herself to be outmaneuvered so easily. She could not believe that she, Ishbel, had allowed herself to be beaten into the snow and so humiliated. Even Maximilian's former lover, Starweb, had not managed to so easily what Ravenna had just accomplished with a few powerful words. "I carry his child, Ishbel, his heir, Maximilian Presimus, will cleave to me now." Cleave? Cleave. Granted, I'm not an expert on such usage of language, but I'm not sure cleave is the word you want to use. While Ishbel's current anger was directed at herself rather than at Ravenna, Ravenna had managed to earn herself Ishbel's enduring enmity, not merely for what Ravenna had said and done, but for the satisfaction with which she had delivered her triumph. Ravenna's time would come. Ishbel rose and brushed snow from her skirt and face with irritated staccato movements. "Am I such a naive girl to be rendered so easily the fool?" she muttered. "I cannot believe I allowed Ravenna such an easy victory." "What victory? You just said that your husband, I'm guessing that's your husband, because you said you was married to him, slept with her. How is that a victory she has over you? That means they're both douchebags. But you also said you weren't angry. I don't understand." Fool no longer, she thought, as she strode in the opposite direction from which Maximilian and Ravenna had taken. Ravenna need expect no goodwill from me in the future, and no more easy victories. What are you talking about? She's pregnant. How's that a victory? Okay, that came out wrong, but you know what I mean. She walked her back straight, a hard glint in her eyes. Ishbel whispered into the night, "Madiran, Madiran, Madiran." Madiran was the soldier Ishbel had killed of a twisted bough on the way down from the Far Reach Mountains to Akhat, when Axis was escorting her to be Isaiah's new wife. She had no reason to believe that Madiran was still with that half of the enormous army which Isaiah had now brought as far as the Sky Peaks Pass, but somehow she knew he was there. "Madiran," she whispered, every inch the priestess intent on her purpose. "Come, I have need of you." 10 minutes later, as Ishbel stood shrouded by a line of dozing horses at the edge of the huge camp, a man emerged out of the night. Kanubai stood in the infantry chamber in the center of Dark Glass Mountain, and exulted. Far to the north, the Lord of Elko falling, vacillated, weak and indecisive, while here Hanubai stood fully fleshed and powerful, and with an army of grey wraiths at his command. Really sounds like we're trying to rip off Lord of the Rings, kind of. Moreover, here Kunubai stood fully fleshed from the flesh of the daughter of the Lord of Elko, falling himself, and that would ensure Kunubai's success. Okay, so even though you're a dude, I guess you're okay, so you're in the form of a woman, I guess? Whatever. There was nothing the Lord of Elko falling could do against him. Kanubai smiled. There were a dozen or so Skraelings within the chamber, all crouched in various postures of chivalry and awe before their lord. They were loathsome creatures, but they would do. Kanubai stretched his arms. Yeah, I guess we're in... Okay, I don't know if we're actually in the form of a woman, or if basically she had to die and then he crafted himself out of what was left of her. I don't know. But it's going to call him a dude, so I guess he's not in the form of a woman, I'm going to assume. He's not really being described in any way but that, so I'll just go with it. Stretched his arms out and roared, knowing that roar would reverberate in the ears of the Lord of Elko falling and terrify him. As he did so, one of his hands glanced against the blackened ruins of the once beautiful golden glass of the infinity chamber, and as his hand glanced against the ruined glass, so Dark Glass Mountain took him. More to the point, it absorbed him. The pyramid had been waiting a very long time for just this moment. Ravana glanced at Maximilian, walking by her side. His face was set into a rigid, featureless expression which Ravana knew meant he hid deep emotion. She slid her arm through his, pulling their bodies together as they walked toward the tent they shared with Benita, Ravana's mother. I know it hurts, she said, but it was the right thing to do. Maximilian did not reply. Ishbel isn't in the right. Leave it be, Ravana, I beg you. Ravana fell silent, torn between wanting to make certain that Maximilian understood the tragedy that Ishbel would make of his life, and knowing that pushing the issue would just as easily alienate him from herself. His steps slowed, and Ravana felt his body tense. She panicked. Maxel, it is done now. You can't go back. Maximilian finally stopped, forcing Ravana to halt as well. I shouldn't have turned my back on her like that. Ever since her childhood, Ishbel has dreamed that eventually the Lord of Elko falling would destroy her life. And now, Maxel, she is the one who would destroy your life. We don't know this. All I know is that she was a douchehole that said, "Hey, I'm pregnant with your husband's baby." That seems a little more douche than, But see, that's why you explain a little bit first, which I'm hoping we're giving a little more of an explanation as to what's going on, other than, "Hey, I'm a dick and I slept with your husband and he cheated on you. And now I'm pregnant. Fuck you." Maximilian sighed, the reaction Ravana dreaded the most. I was too harsh, Ravana, too cruel. Ishbel didn't deserve what I just said to her. Ravana grabbed at one of his hands, bringing it to her breast. She is weak, Maxwell. Through that weakness she will destroy you. Ishbel will midwife nothing but sorrow into this land. Midwife? Midwife. No. A midwife is what helps a woman give birth. That is a midwife. A midwife? Really? Is that supposed to be an insult or something, calling her nothing better than the person that helped give birth to a baby? What the shit? I don't understand this. Maximilian regarded her, then leaned forward and kissed her cheek. I know you mean only goodness, Ravana, but I need to speak with Ishbel. I should not have walked away from her in that manner, and I need to make sure she is all right. She will seduce you, like you haven't. That's her husband. We just established that this is her husband. You are not his wife. He laughed, genuinely amused. Nor even Ishbel would think of that in this great chill. I treated her most badly, Ravana. Let me go, I pray you, so that I may speak a little more gently to her. I will not linger, and I promise you that I shall not allow myself to be seduced. Because that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Dude, why don't you guys just let it chill for a little bit, and then go talk to her? And there we go. He started to pull back from Ravana, and she clasped both her hands about his, tightening her grip. There is something I should show you, Maxwell. Not now, Ravana. No, now, Maxwell. It's Maxwell. I keep trying to say Maxwell, but it's Maxwell. I know you think my aversion to Ishbel either a product of womanly jealousy or a blind bigotry, but it comes from a knowledge I have to share with you. Ravana, let me share it now, Maxwell. He was still leaning away from her, but not so strongly now. Let me show you, Maxwell. I keep saying Maxwell. She whispered, and the snow about them vanished. Maximilian pulled his hand from Ravana's, but it was too late. The snowing ground about the army encampment disappeared, and he found himself standing with Ravana on a gravel path that wound through a misty marshland. Water festered in dark, black, muddy pools to either side of the path, and thick mist drifted through strands of gray-green trees, almost denuded of leaves, its tendrils becoming momentarily hooked on the tree's skeletal branches before twisting free and floating downwards. It was very warm, and Maximilian loosened his cloak. This is the land of dreams, Ravana said. My land. Why are we here? Maximilian said. He was annoyed with Ravana, but more so with himself. He wished quite desperately that he had not behaved so ungraciously toward Ishbel, and he needed to find some solitude, so that he might wonder if he'd made the right decision or not. I don't know why, but when it goes italic, it looks like they actually shrunk the font for when it went italicized. Like, it's clearly several times smaller than it really should be. I want to show you something, Ravana said. Ravana, I need to get back. No, she said, you need to see this. She waved a hand to her right, and the mist cleared. Maximilian saw a roadway winding its serpentine way around a distant mountain, gleaming with gold at its top, set among the clouds. Elko falling. Bodies of men and horses littered the roadway. Ikari lay among the dead, the Emerald Guardsman, and Maximilian could see Gregordy lying atop a heap of outlanders to one side. Look, whispered Ravana. An army now moved along the road toward Elko falling, pushing aside the bodies of the fallen as it went. The army consisted of creatures distorted into gruesome form, their eyes wide and staring, lost and hopeless. At their head strode a man of darkness. This is what Ishbel saw. Ishbel shall generate, Ravana said. No, Maximilian said. The army marched its way to the doors of Elko falling, and Maximilian and Ravana saw, as if they stood only feet away, the man of darkness reach forth and pound his fist on the gates. They will not open for him, said Maximilian. They shall. Now remember, that this is her dream world. She said so. So she can likely just make up this shit. Granted, I don't know to the extent of how this world operates, We haven't really established anything in that regard. It just assumes you read the first book and know this crap. But yeah. The gate shrieked and opened, and Maximilian saw Ishbel crawl forth on her hands and knees, weeping. The man of darkness reached down to her and lifted her hand, and Maximilian saw the queen's ring gleamed on Ishbel's fourth finger. You have delivered me, Elko Falling, said the man of darkness to Ishbel, and have sentenced Lord to death. You have done well. If you slide that ring... Okay, so they're not married yet. Then why did she say they were married? If you slide that ring onto her finger, said Ravana, you marry darkness to Elko Falling, and ensure your own death. Ishbel is your doom, Maximilian Persimius. Maximilian could not speak. He continued to stare into the mist where the vision had appeared a moment ago. Ishbel will murder you and ruin this land. Or so you think. She's on her knees and weeping, assuming this is a vision of what could be a future. It could be an accident caused by this bitch taking her husband away. Who knows? You can't just guess what's going to happen based on one vision. There could be multiple reasons why this happens. In fact, I would say she's not actually going to kill him or anything. There's probably more going on than this. That doesn't make her an asshole. This might make her an asshole because you're both being bitches about it. Maximilian, stare in the mist where the vision had appeared a moment ago. Ishbel will murder you, blah blah blah. I know you love her, but she will bring you to Elko Falling, and this entire land nothing but sorrow. Enough, Maximilian said. For pity's sake, Ravana, don't you know when you have won? Don't you know when best to stop? Kanubai felt his hand slide into the glass and instantly knew what was happening. All at once the Lord of Elko Falling seemed the very least of his problems. The pyramid sucked him deep into the blackness where, for what seemed to Kanubai like an infinity of time, he and it did great battle. Then suddenly the pyramid tired of its play, and it destroyed Kanubai, taking of the ancient creature only what it wanted: flesh, breath. What? According to the inside flap, this guy was revived despite best efforts. Then he gets sucked into a golden pyramid, and then it kills him? I don't understand what's going on. We're switching perspectives way too fucking much. It is enough, Maximilian said, finally pulling his hand from Ravana's grasp. He stepped back, his booted heel crunching the snow. Don't go to her, Ravana said. Don't. Maximilian said, then stopped, one hand half raised to his face as if his head ached. Maxo? Ravana said, putting a hand on his arm. Maximilian said nothing, staring into the black night, snow catching at his dark hair. Kanubai, he thought, what has happened? What? I am so confused. How do you know what's going on? I don't understand. Ravana didn't know what to do. She felt helpless in the face of his fatal his fatal fascination for Ishbel. What else could she say to Maximilian? What else could she show him to bring him to his senses? Ravana, he said, I must go. There's something She grabbed his arm. Don't go to her, Maxel. He tore himself loose, almost stumbling with the violence of his movement. Just leave it be, Ravana. Just for 1 hour, I beg you. Before Ravana could say anything, he was gone, half jogging into the night. The score or so of Skrellings who had watched Kanubai get sucked into the glass now cowered in the corner of the infinity chamber, terrified. Before them they could see Kanubai's form in the glass, twisting this way and that, being stretched first in one direction, then in another. From time to time the glass walls bulged outward as Kanubai fought for his freedom. Then they would snap back into rigidity as the Lord of Chaos weakened. "What should we do?" whispered one of the Skraelings, its hand clutching at the shoulder of its nearest companion. "Watch and wait," the other Skraeling replied. It grinned suddenly, its long pointed teeth glistening within the ambient light of the Infinity Chamber, its silverly orbed eyes brightened with calculation. "And then," said the first Skraeling. "Whatever necessity dictates," replied the second. Some time passed. The Skraelings could not calculate how much. Then suddenly the last vestige of Kanubai's form vanished. The Infinity Chamber fell into silence. "What should we do?" hissed another of the Skraelings. "Wait," whispered the pragmatist. "Wait." And so they waited. Eventually something stepped forth from the glass. It was the height and shape of a man, with the head of a man, which was slightly less intimidating than the jackal head which Kanubai had assumed. In other aspects, however, the creature was entirely unmanlike. Its flesh was not made of tissue and blood, but appeared to be formed of a palpable and utterly beautiful blue-green glass. Deep within the creature's chest, a golden pyramid slowly rotated. Its head was also glass-like, the eyes great wells of darkness. The Skraelings abscessed themselves upon the floor of the Infinity Chamber. "Who are you, great lord?" asked the bravest among them. "I am the One," the creature said. "I am the perfection incarnate, for I am indivisible. I am infinity in its purest form." "Then we are your servants," said the Skraelings, who, while understanding almost nothing of what one had just said, were nothing if not realists. As Maximilian strode into the night, and the Skraelings abased themselves before the One, Lister stood with three of his Lilfast atop a peak on the far reach mountains, looking southward toward Isambard. Snowy and icy wind coiled slowly around them, but none of the four paid the cold any mind. The first sight seeming to be Iskari, with the same elegant human form and huge spreading wings. The Lifast were at second glance something else. Their forms were not completely solid, but made of shifting shades of gray and white and silver, as small drifts of frost clung to their features. "Something bad is happening," Lester murmured, peering into the night, as if he could physically see south of Dark Glass Mountain. Kanubai has gone. Slightly to one side and behind him, the three Lealfast, Elaon, Bingal, and Indaro, exchanged a quick glance. What they felt could not be said before Lister. Something perfect had just occurred. Chapter 2, The Sky Peak Pass. Ravenna watched him walk away into the night. She tugged her cloak about herself, feeling her failure to keep Maximilian from Ishbel even more keenly than the cold. She had truly thought for a while that he realized the danger. He told Ishbel that Ravenna was carrying his child, and that he would cleave to Ravenna. Again, I don't think cleave is meant to be used like that. And then he allowed his guilt to overwhelm him and doubts to assail him. "You don't know the whole story. How do you know anything?" He was acting weirdly for a moment, and then he left. He'd gone back to Ishbel. "You don't know this. You don't know this." Not an hour had passed since he turned his back on Ishbel. Now he'd gone straight back to the woman. "You don't know this." Ravenna loved Maximilian. "That's nice, but you still don't know anything." And she wanted the best for him, we assume. But this weakness, as far as Ishbel was concerned, drove her to despair. Maximilian had responsibilities and concerns far beyond Ishbel, far beyond anyone. So you say. He was lord of Elko Falling, as we've established, and Elko Falling should come first, otherwise his entire land would fall into ruin. Not necessarily. but that is a good point. Maximilian needed to put Elko falling before Ishbel, and now Ravana doubted very much that he could do that. You don't know this. For months, Ravana had entertained doubts about Ishbel. In the past few weeks, they'd firmed into certainty, as she'd become more certain of the vision within the land of dreams. You are only seeing one aspect of this. You're not seeing anything from Ishbel's point of view. You don't know this. You just see a guy with an army marching up to the top of the gates and what he says to her. You don't know this. In the past few weeks, they'd firmed into certainty as she become more certain of the vision within the land of dreams. Ishbel had a weakness about her that would doom Maximilian. You don't know this. And through him, his entire land, if he took her back as wife. You don't know this. But Maximilian resented it whenever Ravana tried to talk to him about Ishbel, even considering all the pain Ishbel had already brought into his life. The loss of their daughter, her affair with the tyrant, Isaiah. Maximilian wouldn't hear anything said against her. We don't know this. You're just telling us this, and I'm still calling into question how much of this you do or don't know and how much you're just supposing. I can believe a lot of things about somebody, but that doesn't mean they're true, and that definitely doesn't mean I have the whole story. Maximilian, hold on. I think I skipped a line and then just turned the page. Maximilian, Taking Maximilian into the land of dreams tonight had been a calculated risk. Ravana had dared it only as a last resort. Didn't really establish that it was a last resort. Didn't seem all that desperate. And again, it's the land of dreams. Dreams change, and really, granted, again, nothing is established about how real or anything that this so-called land of dreams is. For all we know, it's just reflecting what Ravana believes and elaborating on it. There can also, since it's a magical fantasy world, be other influences into what she's seeing. She doesn't seem to be thinking of that now, does she? And it had failed. Damn you, Maxwell, Ravana whispered. Then she turned away and walked slowly deeper into the night. Thank the gods, she thought, that she had convinced Maximilian's son, Thank the gods, she thought, that she had convinced Maximilian's son. The child represented hope. Oh, conceived, not convinced. If not the father, then maybe the son. How do we know you're not the asshole? How do we know it's not your baby that's going to be his downfall? How do we not know this? And why isn't this something in your head? Maximilian strode away from Ravana, absolutely furious with her. For no reason. This was not merely for her persistence harping about Isabel. You are kind of sounding like a dick. But because she had decided to harp just at the moment when he'd felt Kanubi vanish. Oh yeah, because I'm really worried about this some chick that might be your wife, but apparently isn't your wife now, but might still be your wife. I don't understand this, and I don't think the author does either, but I'm really concerned about you, but how dare I just have, it's just woman stuff. How, it's just harping. It's just me being a bitch to you. That's what my concern is, me being a bitch to you. I bumped the mic. All Maximilian wanted to do was try and make some sense of what had happened to Kanubi, to concentrate on what might have happened to him. And all Ravana could do was cheer up on and on about Ishbel. She doesn't fucking know, you asshole. She doesn't fucking know you have a fucking connection because you didn't say anything. You just fucking left. All she knows is you probably left to go fuck your wife, ex-wife, chick thing. You are an asshole, sir. Fuck you. Could she not leave well enough alone for just 1 minute? Fuck you! He walked away, not daring to speak. He'd allowed Ravana to think he was going back to Ishbel because he was so angry that he simply did not trust himself to open his mouth. Then, so you know what she's thinking, but you don't give a shit to correct it really quick and then go take care of whatever you need to go take care of. Fuck you! And he did not want to think about what Ravana had shown him. Not right now. Not when something had just happened to make the entire world shift on its axis. Maximilian walked through the camp, looking for Isha, hoping that he had also felt the surge of emptiness from the south, hoping that Isaiah might have been able to make some sense of it. Maximilian spun. Isaiah was emerging from between a line of tents, his face strained. Axis' sun sword was a step behind him. You felt it, Maximilian said to Isaiah. Isaiah gave a curt nod. Is there somewhere close we can speak? My tent is some distance. Not my tent, Maximilian said. He couldn't face Ravana again this soon, and he didn't want her to hear what might be said on this subject. Because, heaven forbid, it's something that might endanger her, or maybe she could help with. Fuck all of you! I was enjoying myself because the intro was good and creepy, and creeped me out. I'm not enjoying myself now. I hate all of you! Axis? Mine is close enough, Axis said, and led them a few minutes through the maze of horse lines and campfires to his tent, set close to that of Star Drifter and Solomon's. He held aside the flap, then indicated his father's tent. Should I ask my father? Maximilian shook his head. Not just yet. Axis' tent, just like that of all the main commanders, was commendorous, high-ceilinged, and well-appointed. The three men pulled out chairs and sat at the large folding camp table. Axis's body servant, Yesel, set out a jug of ale and 3 breakers, then left the tent. All 3 men ignored the ale. What's wrong? Said Axis. Isaiah said something had happened. Isaiah and Maximilian exchanged glances. Something has happened to Kanubai, said Maximilian, very suddenly, within this past half hour. It felt to me as if all the threat associated with him suddenly dissipated. Isaiah gave a nod. I felt it too. What do you mean, Axis said, when you say that all the threat about Kanubai suddenly dissipated? Maximilian and Isaiah exchanged another glance. Kanubai is gone, said Isaiah. No more. Dead. Then why the long faces? Said Axis. Surely if Kanubai is dead, then... He stopped, realizing the implications. Oh, gods! Is it Dark Glass Mountain? Has Dark Glass Mountain taken Kanubai? Maximilian gave a slight shrug. I don't know. He rubbed at his forehead with one hand, looking exhausted. Kanubai was so powerful. What else could have taken him save the Glass Mountain, Isaiah? I think the pyramid might be even more dangerous than Kanubai, Isaiah said. Lister, he commanded, naming his ancient ally, and I had wondered before if we'd been concentrating on the wrong enemy all this time. Oh, for all the gods' sakes, Maximilian muttered, why do I feel as if the ground is constantly shifting beneath my feet? He paused. Isaiah, where is Lister now? When will he be here? He is flesh now, as I, said Isaiah. He can only travel as flesh. He was most recently in the Far Reach Mountains, and it may take him weeks to get here. We need to know what has happened, but I think that all of us are too tired. Maxell, have you been to bed at all? No, neither have I. I want to talk to you about the pyramid, Isaiah, Maximilian said. Tomorrow, Maxell, perhaps by then, refreshed, we will have gleaned more of what has happened. May I suggest we all meet in the afternoon? Axis, bring your father as well, and perhaps Malat and Gregordai. In the meantime, Isaiah stopped as the door of X's tent opened, and Ishbel looked in. She gave Maximilian an unreadable glance, then looked to Isaiah. Isaiah, she said, may I speak with you? It is important. Chapter 3, The Sky Peak Pass. I think all of these have been the same chapter name. Meow. JC, don't. I'm reading. Maximilian tensed, looking away from Ishbel and down at his hands, and Isaiah did not miss his discomfort. Of course, Ishbel, Isaiah said. He rose and joined her outside. Is there anything wrong? He said. Once the flap had fallen closed behind them. Not particularly, said Ishbel. You have something I need. Where is your tent? Isaiah indicated a path through the sleeping encampment, and they walked quietly for a while. What is wrong with Maximilian? Isaiah said eventually. Something has happened. Ishbel gave a slight shrug. Something has happened, Ishbel. I went to him tonight. I told him that I loved him, that I made a terrible mistake, and begged him if there was a chance we could remake our marriage. So you are married. So what is with this not married, but is married, but not actually married, but married now? I don't get it. Remake our marriage. He, to be blunt, said that no, there wasn't. She paused. Ravana is pregnant. Oh, that fool, Isaiah said. To his amazement, Ishbel actually gave a small smile. I was the fool, Isaiah. I cannot believe I made such a spectacle of myself, or that I allowed Ravana so easily best me. She did not best you. Your husband committed adultery with her, and she's being an asshole about it. Again, that slight shrug. Well, no more. What do you mean? It means that I have decided not to allow myself to be buffed about by anyone else, Isaiah. Dear gods, I have more strength than that. I need to make my own way. Now it was Isaiah who smiled. Maybe Maximilian has done better tonight than I'd first thought. Well done, Ishbel. I have been waiting for this woman to emerge for some time, I don't suppose. As a test, he allowed his mind to linger over some memories of the time when they'd been lovers, wondering if Ishbel was now aware enough of her own power to pick up his mental images. Not to Well, if you've dumped your husband and told him to fuck himself, because clearly he is able to fuck himself with another woman, then why not us get together and have some fun? Because there's no commitments anymore. He's a douchebag. To pick up his mental images. Not tonight, Isaiah, she said, and smiled again. What were you and Axis and Maxell talking so closely closeted? She asked. And all of you had great worrying lines etched in your faces. Something has happened with Kambunai tonight. Kanbai, Isaiah said. It feels almost as if he has vanished. Dark Glass Mountain, Ishbel said. More than likely. We decided we were all too tired to solve the problem tonight, and that we should sleep on it and meet later tomorrow to discuss it. Today, I suppose, as it must be close to dawn. I will attend as well, Ishbel said, of course. They drew close to Isaiah's command tent, a great square scarlet extravagance of pendants and bells. What do you need from me, Ishbel? Isaiah said, allowing her to pass through the doorway first. She waited until they were both well inside the tent, and the door flap closed behind them. The goblet of the frogs, she said, naming the magical goblet that Isaiah had shown Ishbel in his palace at Aquat. I assume you brought it with you. Isaiah gave a nod. And you want it because it is of my family, she said. My ancestress Tirzah fashioned it, and I want it because I think it can teach me many things. Isaiah studied her for a moment. All the time he had known her, there had been an aura of fragility about her, or of worry, or of uncertainty. All of that had gone now. What happened tonight, Ishbel? What really happened? Maxwell and I, everything between us was colored by my fear of the Lord of Elko falling. The whispers I'd heard when I was a child in the house with the corpses of my family. The corpses of your family? What the hell? Isaiah nodded. As an eight-year-old girl, Ishbel had spent a month trapped in the charnel house of her family home, the corpses of her family rotting and whispering about her. What the shit? Why? How did that happen? You have to elaborate a little more than that, my friend. You can't just be like, well, read the first book. No, if you're mentioning it here, you need to explain it a little bit. It can be explained in greater detail if people want to go find the first book, but you need to explain it a little more than that in this one. Had taught me to fear the Lord of Elko falling, for he would bring nothing but bleakness and despair to my world. All through my girlhood and into my marriage with Maximilian, I had visions of how one day the Lord of Elko falling would turn his back on me and ruin my world. Maxwell and I, Ishbel made a helpless gesture with her hands. I wanted to love him, but I feared what he would do to my life. He was the Lord of Elko falling, and everything I had ever experienced had taught me to be terrified of him. Well, last night, Star Drifter and Solomon convinced me that I had to take the chance. That together, Maxwell and I could have something extraordinary. So I went to him and begged him, and he rejected me and presented me with his pregnant lover. Then he turned his back on me and walked away. Ishbel took a deep breath. And in the doing, he destroyed my world and fulfilled the visions I've experienced over all those years. An extraordinary blackness, a complete despair overwhelmed. It crushed me. I collapsed in the snow, and he walked away, and then, fury consumed me, not at Maxwell, nor even at Ravana, although, by the gods, I despise that woman and will surely have my revenge on her, but at myself, for being so stupid, for allowing myself to be so easily outmaneuvered. How? She stole your man? That's what's bothering you? Not the fact that he's an asshole? In a better story, everybody'd be like, look, it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. He's an asshole. She's an asshole. They're both assholes. Just tell them both to fuck off and do something with yourself. But at myself, for being so stupid, for allowing myself to be easily outmaneuvered. That fury was also a release. The worst had happened, and it was my fault, really, rather than that of Maxwell, and now I was beyond it. And if I didn't want this to happen again, I needed to collect myself somewhat. You did all of this in the span of what, 30 minutes? 30 minutes. Maybe an hour. That's it. You had an hour at least. No, at most. 30 minutes at least, an hour at most. That's quite a transformation for such a short period of time. Yeah. Wait, I don't know if I even finished her sentence, so I'm gonna go back. Rather than that of Maxwell, and now I was beyond it. And if I didn't want this to happen again, I needed to collect myself somewhat. That's quite a transformation for such a short period of time. It was almost instant, Isaiah. I was suddenly faced with the devastation I'd always feared. But it wasn't the Lord of Elko Falling's fault. It was mine. It was... Isabel paused, trying to find the words to describe what she'd felt. It was as if I'd experienced a gigantic release of pressure, I think. It was done. It was over. I didn't have to fear any more. Not if I decided to take control and take back that strength I had lost. You don't still long for Maxwell, who I'm still calling Maxwell for some reason. Not on his terms. Isaiah stared at her. Then he very slowly smiled. Well, I have been waiting to meet this woman for a long time. Maxwell has an uncomfortable time ahead of him, I think. She returned his smile. Ravana will have to cope with his black moods, not I. for the moment. She is welcome to them. Messiah walked over to a pack in the corner of the tent. He rummaged about in it, then withdrew a carefully wrapped parcel. "For you," he said. "For the Lady of Elko Falling." "What's happened?" Axis asked Maximilian once Ishbel and Isaiah had left. "Oh, gods," Maximilian groaned and rested his head in his hands for a moment. "How did you manage it, Axis? Faraday and Azure, I think? I don't know if that's supposed to be pronounced like Azure or Azure, because it's Azhure. What do you think, Kat? I'm just going to sit here and look pretty." Axis gave a short laugh, remembering that time so long ago when he had loved 2 women, and thought to have them both. "How did I manage it? Not well, Maxwell. What happened tonight? Ishbel came to me, told me she loved me, that she wanted us to remake our marriage. And you said, 'Ravana is pregnant, and I feel responsible for her.' Ah, so I told Ishbel that it was impossible. Axis, you have no idea how guilty I felt walking away from Ishbel. You can still assume responsibility for Ravana's child and take Ishbel back as your wife." Maximilian stared at his hands and didn't say anything. "Do you want to take Ishbel back as your wife, Maxwell?" Axis asked softly. "I don't know. Everything between us. There has always been such dishonesty and distrust, such depth of emotion, such mismanagement, Axis. Do I love her? Once I thought I did. Then when I found her with Zaya and our daughter dead, then I was certain I hated her. There is such distance between us. She has for years believed that the Lord of Echo Falling would only ever bring her entire world despair and dismay, and tonight I fulfilled that prophecy for her." Now it was Axis who said nothing, watching Maximilian and allowing the man to talk it out. "There's so much else I needed to concentrate on, Axis. Echo Falling and whatever has happened to Kanubai, Dark Glass Mountain, and these damned Isbardidian generals who distrust me and doubtless plot against me. I do not need to be distracted by women just now." "Well, that's your fucking fault, now isn't it?" Axis gave a slight shrug. "Because he's an asshole. And might as well tell you this was a grave of your own making." "Ravana hates Ishbel," Maximilian continued. "For months she has spoken of her in nothing but dark terms and dismal tones. Her constant harpings said—" "Shut up, you asshole! Shut up your bitching! You cheated on your wife. Who cheated on you? All of you are assholes. All of you. No one's innocent here. Just shut up. Just shut up." Harping set my teeth on edge. Tonight, as Ravana and I walked away from Ishbel, Ravana thought I was having second thoughts about rejecting Ishbel. Were you? Maximilian ignored the question. Ravana pulled me into the land of dreams, and there she showed me a vision. Of what? Of Echo Falling laid siege by an army of misshapen creatures, and with Irkari and human alike lying in piles of the dead. A creature, a dark, nameless, formless thing, walked to the gates of Echo Falling, and they opened, and Ishbel crawled forth and welcomed the creature into the Citadel. She did not. She was on her hands and knees, crying. She was crying. You fucker. You asshole. Get your facts straight, you dickbag. It told her that it was glad she had done its bidding. So you think. You don't know this. You only saw one perspective, which could be heavily suggestible, not only in allowing it entry to Echo Falling, but in my murder. Ravana said that if I again took Ishbel as my wife, then the vision would become a reality. Ishbel will murder me and betray Echo Falling. She may not mean to, but she will do it. So you have the common sense to realize it might be an accident that's going to happen. Fuck you! Fuck you, and fuck you, and fuck you, and fuck everybody around you. Fuck this story and this book. Fuck it. I'm not recommending this book at all, or any other books. I am really getting sick and tired of every book I pick up being about some douche hole or being really fucking boring. I'm sick to death of it. Ravana has a dark and bitter twist to her, Maxwell. But what she showed me, I don't think she conjured that vision. It must be a true warning. I once thought that Azure was my deadly enemy too, Maxwell, and I mistreated her so horrifically she almost died. If she had died... Axis shook his head. Maxwell, I saw a truth, but I misinterpreted it so badly. I almost lost the woman without whom I would have accomplished none of what later I managed. Trust your heart, Maxwell. Hearts can be wrong. That's true. But don't be a douche. Oh my god, it's still going. Again, Axis shrugged. Because none of what we're talking about is super important. It's like talking about the weather, and I don't really care about the weather. I don't really care if you live or die, or if you bang a woman who might kill you, or bang another woman who you basically committed adultery with. Whatever. Again, Axis shrugged. What are you going to do? Raise, echo falling, one stone at a time. Mandarin was waiting for Ishbel when she left the tent, a bundle carefully held in her arms. I have arranged everything, my lady. She smiled at him. Really? Where? He led her back the way Isaiah had originally brought her. It was just on dawn now, and soft light permeated the crowded lines of horses and tents, and equipment and campfires. Overhead, one of the Ikari drifted down toward a group crouched about one of the fires, while everywhere sleepy men emerged into the new day, yawning and stretching stiff, cold limbs. I am glad I can finally be of service to you, my lady, Mandarin said as they walked. Having saved my life, there is nothing I will not now do for you. I shall not ask anything too corrupt of you, Mandarin, but whatever else you can give me, I shall be glad enough of. I think that, oh gods, Mandarin, where did you find that? Mandarin grinned as Ishbel stopped in her tracks and stared ahead. He was a middle-aged man, scarred and toughened by years in the military, and he had thought himself way past deriving pleasure from watching the wondering surprise of a lovely woman. But he supposed that perhaps he wasn't so hardened as he'd thought. Ishbel was staring at the tent Mandarin had sourced for her before she'd gone to find Isaiah. She had asked Mandarin to find her a tent of her own. She was sick of sharing with others as if she were a stateless refugee. You are an asshole. And she'd resolved that she would now house herself in a manner which befitted her new determination to be her own woman. Because rooming with the lower class citizens, how dare we? How dare we actually show compassion, that we care for people of lower class than I? I'm just too good for you. So fuck all of you. She'd imagined that Mandarin would find for her one of the small grayish canvas tents that soldiers used. It might be cramped and lowly, but it would be hers. Instead, he had found her Ishbel a magnificence that was more beautiful even than Isaiah's scarlet extravagance. Why do we have tents of different colors? Shouldn't they match our surroundings than, being easy to spot and raided by an enemy force? The tent was of a similar size and shape to Isaiah's, full square, and large enough to hold within it a large canopy bed. Really? Really? A dining or conference table and an area set about with cushions and low stools for more casual conversing. But instead of being scarlet, it was a vivid blue, picked out with gold and silver braiding. and hung about with tiny bells and golden tassels. The tent itself was extraordinary enough, but the great pennants that flaunted from its pinnacle was almost miraculously lovely. Almost, but not quite. It had been sewn with cloth of a blue far more vivid than that of the tent. On this field of blue someone had stitched a device that left Ishbel momentarily speechless. The device depicted an outstretched woman's arms, pale-skinned and delicately fingered. About the arm coiled a slim golden rope, its coils and knots intricate about the upper part of the woman's arm, but uncoiling to simplicity by the time it reached her wrist. Behind the woman's hand was depicted the faint outline of a rising sun. "I have been working on that pendant for months," Miranda said softly, "and looking for the opportunity to give it to you for weeks now. I wanted to give you something, as you have given me my life, something that represented who and what you are." Mandarin. Ishbel didn't know what to say, or how to thank him. "The tent," Mandarin said, his voice a little choked at the tears gleaming in Ishbel's eyes, "is a spare tent that Isaiah carries with him on campaigns. It can be used by him for his usual scarlet tent, if his usual scarlet tent is damaged, or it can be used for visiting or captured king. I do not think he will mind that now you use it." Ishbel wiped away a tear, then turned to Mandarin and made a slight bow. "Thank you, Mandarin. You have no idea what you have done for me this day." The tent was simply but comfortably furnished. Ishbel washed, then unwrapped the goblet. She stood a while staring at the beautifully caged glass, running a soft fingertip over the frogs gambolling about the reeds. Then she lay down to sleep, curling her naked body about with the goblet under the blanket. "Why are you naked? You are in a camp full of dudes. Why are you naked? What if somebody attacks and you're naked? Why would you get naked?" She sighed and drifted into sleep to the goblet's soft refrain. "Hold me, soothe me, love me." Ishbel slept, and for the first time in many years she did not dream. An hour or two into sleep, Ishbel's arms relaxed enough that the goblet of the frogs rolled lightly away from her body. The goblet dislodged the covering blanket as it moved, exposing its rim to the night air. For long minutes after that movement there was nothing but stillness. Then something stirred within the yawning mouth of the goblet. The darkness within the goblet bulged. Then something emerged, jumping across Isabel's white arm, causing her to stir a little but not wake, and leapt down suddenly to the floor. It was a large gray rat. It paused a moment, looking about the tent, its dark eyes gleaming. Then it scampered for the door, and slid underneath its loose cabinet's bottom. Minutes later, it was moving about the boundary of the encampment, scurrying from shadow to shadow until it reached open ground, and was free to race southward across the snow-covered plains. I bumped the mic again. I'm sorry. This book sucks. Don't pick it up. Don't read it. The only thing, the prologue was interesting, but I don't know why we keep jumping point of views. Instead of just saying on one thing and then going to the next thing. But whatever. The main characters are douchebags, and nothing exciting really happens except for in the prologue, the bad guy does something which we're not really sure of, and neither are the people or the things that pretty much are his army. And it's just all out and boring. Just makes you mad, it's just boring, and it's stupid, and oh my god, woman problems. Oh my god, she cheated on me, but I'm a douchebag, and I cheated on her. And then, of course, when we're complaining about this, all the other characters are like, yeah, whatever. It's day 5 of the same damn thing. Fuck this story. I'm not going to read any more of it. I'm just taking it back to the library. Don't read it. It's a shit book. This is Caleb, and this has been Red Knot. Thank you for listening. Bye!